it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles, touchdown.
Here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
Fields stumbling, trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown!
Hurts on first down, fires downfield. It's Deshaun Jackson back in the lineup. This is the last 7 games, and he will take it 81 yards. A somersault into the end zone. His first touchdown of the season.
You're listening to The Pigskin Project, the world's #1 football podcast. Now, with more insights on all things football, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen and Ryan Matthews.
No, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen and Hartman. Ryan is sick. He has a headache and some stomach issues. Sick with what? Probably sick with the BS that the Bears put him through, to be frank. But Ryan is sick, so it's going to be Matt. And as you guys can see, my camera will not work for some reason. I wish I could give you guys a solid reason as to why it's not turning on. I just don't have that answer for you guys. But Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. The Saints are coming off a 2-game win streak. Texas is 3rd ranked in the country. And NC State basketball and Kentucky basketball kicked off, and they're both undefeated so far. So very good stuff going on in the sports world for me right now. So I'm just excited to talk ball. You know, I'm a ball talk aficionado, as it says in my headline. So let's get into the ball talk.
One of my favorite things is seeing what your headline is going to be every single time we come on the podcast. Don't get your hopes up too. Well, you know what? We'll save the Saints talk for a little bit. But, you know, as those who know and are familiar with how it goes with Matt when he comes on, these are usually very long podcasts. So we'll just go ahead and we'll jump right into it for the first segment here today.
Ryan and Ben bring you weekly news.
Yeah, so not a whole lot of news in terms of like actual substance and number of reports. There are 2 kind of bigger headlines, though. Daniel Jones ended up getting benched. It's actually going to be Tommy DeVito who's stepping in at quarterback and not Drew Lock, the backup quarterback, pretty much the entire season for him. Do you want to say anything about the situation before I dig into it a little bit?
I think to me it pretty much confirms that the Giants are tanking because Tommy DeVito is a worse quarterback than Drew Lock. I think we can all probably come to that conclusion pretty easily. And number 2 is that Brian Daboll has no fear with his job. I feel like if he were trying to win games, you would put in the better player. But I think they're in full tank mode. They want to get a better pick. They want to get a better quarterback. And another clause of Daniel Jones' contract, just like Russell Wilson last year, why Russell Wilson was benched so late in the year, is that he has an injury guarantee of like $20 million. So if you can avoid that, if you're going to cut him in the offseason anyway, you're not going to risk injury over the tanking part of your season. And also foiling the tank because Daniel Jones can still win games. I know, you know, he hasn't, but he could steal 1 or 2 where I don't think Tommy DeVito is gonna go out there and ball out and win you too many games. But those were my initial conclusions, and I feel like
you never know. Tommy Cutlets. I mean, the people of New York absolutely love Tommy Cutlets. But do you
think that was a John Mara decision to sell some jerseys, sell out? You know, we got Tommy Cutlets back on the field. Let's
I do think it was a business decision. I do think that was like, a business decision in terms of like, again, getting the tank, as you were saying, because Locke is a better quarterback, but business because the people of New York like do genuinely love DeVito. Like they go crazy for him. So yes, I definitely think it is. But as you were saying, like that was the one big takeaway I had from this was this kind of shows that Daboll's not scared of losing his job. Like if he wanted to go win games, he would keep DJ in there, Daniel Jones, but he's not. So I think we can probably safely say that he has at least one more year left. Now, whether or not you agree or disagree with that is another discussion for another time come the offseason. But like you were saying, I do think that kind of secures his job for another year. At least he's not worried about losing his job this year. Another big headline, and I guess New York is just absolutely on fire this week. Like bad fire, like not good. Like this, New York is just in disarray. Yeah, dumpster fire. They fired Joe Douglas. It looks like they're cleaning house with the Saleh firing, and now they're firing him. To be frank, I'm not a big fan of the move at all, but I'll kind of dig into that after you say your piece on this.
Yeah, I mean, the report that I read of that, they kind of stripped away his power, his decision making once the Saleh firing happened. This was kind of the writing on the wall. I still disagree with the Saleh firing. They've been worse defensively since the Saleh firing. I said that when it happened, that it was expected to happen. And the offense didn't get better because the offensive coordinator didn't change. It changed in perspective, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. Like, Aaron Rodgers is the offensive coordinator. What he wants to do is how it's going to go. And so it just looks like a team that quit. And, you know, that's what happens with the Jets. And this team, it's an endless cycle of just disappointment. They have not made the playoffs, not won a playoff game, not made the playoffs since 2010. Mark Sanchez was playing in an AFC championship game. That was the last time the Jets played in the playoff game. It's unfathomable to think about that, but that is a true stat. And I thought he had misses in drafts. He had misses in free agency, so I understand why they're making the move, and they fired the coach that he brought on. I get it, but at the same time, it's the endless cycle of the Jets. So what are you going to do about it? But
yeah, no, I mean, I don't think, and I think the biggest issue I take with it is he was doing everything in his power at the time to make good decisions. And I don't think a lot of it stems from the choices he made. Like, if you look back at that 2022 draft class, those first four picks are like very well. Three of the first four picks are very good in Sauce, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall. And then that fourth one, their last third rounder there is Jeremiah Johnson, who looked good before getting hurt. And he had Vera Tucker like the year before, Michael Carter the year before. So he's made good moves and he's brought like good pieces in. I think it was more so like you were saying, not bringing in the right guy to coach the team. But in terms of like talent acquisition, he did good. And the other, he had Will McDonald, who had finally turned it on this year. Like, good for him. And good props to you that Will McDonald is turning on. For those who don't know, Will McDonald aficionado here, Matt Hartman.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't even think it was like a lack of like actually acquiring players. It was just him not being able to get a good coach. So I think he should have been able to have a second opportunity to at least go out and find another coach. But the big shocker for me was reports came out saying like everything like after the draft wasn't even him. Like the Hassan Reddick decision was not him. The Devontae Adams decision was not him. And as you were saying, it seems like he got stripped of all that stuff. And like in actuality, the Hassan Reddick move was one of the worst moves of this like 10 year. And Devontae Adams looked fine, but they overpaid for him. So that was not a good move. And that was another move he didn't make. I think it was a bad hiring, and I think Woody Johnson doesn't really know what to do with this team. He wants to win, but right now the team is not winning, and I don't think firing Joe Douglas was going to get you a step closer to that. So
yeah, you can't fix bad ownership. It's a common stigma in the NFL to me, is that the teams that are bad for a reason, and they continue to be bad for a reason. Yeah, I mean, Dallas is another example. It's just bad owners cannot help themselves to make bad decisions and improperly assess where they are in their timeline. Like when that Devontae Adams trade happened, I feel like we talked about it. It was just like, does this make the Jets Super Bowl contenders? Because the only way to justify it is by them doing that. And it's like, no, this is just maybe they get to 9 wins. Like, maybe they sneak into the wild card if we make this move for Devontae Adams. And that's all, like, that's horrible, just timeline mismanagement. So, yeah, you can't outrun bad ownership, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree. I mean, look at the Commanders, literally the 1 year removed, not even a year removed. This is the first year under new ownership from Daniel Snyder. And they're already looking like it's like probably the best this team has looked in all of like the tenure that he owned that team.
Yeah.
Bad ownership will run a team into the ground. We are seeing it with the New York Jets. And then the last bit of news here. Sorry, let me find it. Gabe Davis is most likely out for the season. He tore his meniscus. He's getting surgery done on it. I guess there's like a tiny chance that it's just like one of the smaller surgeries where he's back in a month. But with the way that this Jags team has looked like, I don't think there's any reason for him to do a surgery like that. I think if this Jags team was a very good team, it would make sense for him to do like the minor fix and then get like the whole reconstructive surgery done in the off season. But with them being as bad as they are, I would be very surprised if Gabe Davis isn't just out for the rest of the season. So prayers to him. Hopefully that surgery goes well and he can bounce back and have a good second year in Jacksonville. So, but moving on to our next segment here, weekly review. Starting it off with a game that I told you guys I wasn't able to watch. And by the time I was able to watch it, it was all but over. The Commanders versus Eagles. Boy, I heard the first 3 quarters of that game was not very good for the Eagles offense until you just decided to turn around and just give it to arguably the best running back in football. And in games like that, that's kind of what you have to do. You just have to rely on him. If you're not getting anything going on, in the air, turn around to the ground game and get it done in the ground game. And it seems like they did that. And Jaden Daniels, he's looked more human. He's looked like a rookie quarterback the last few weeks. He hasn't looked like that, Jaden Daniels that we saw for the first 7 weeks of the season. He's looked a little bit more human the past couple weeks. So I'm interested to see how that translates to the rest of the year. But do you have anything on this first game? Because you actually watched it.
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders are finally getting caught up on. I read a stat right after the game. Over 56% of their plays have been runs, and 15% or so have been screens. So we're at over 70% of plays are. I think there was another number. I think it was 7% play action. So this team is only dropping back, pure dropbacks, nearly 20% of the time, which is just, it's not how you want to live in the NFL. You want to be able to have a drop back passer who can make reads down the field and move the ball and create explosive plays. And Vic Fangio's design was, we're going to tackle hard, we're going to let Zach Bond run around and make plays all around the field, and we're going to play quarters, and you're not going to get explosives on us. If you want to try and efficiently move the ball down the field, go ahead. And by the time that they did, the game was done. And it's just, they're finally getting caught. And I've been seeing this since, the Bears game. It felt like this is not sustainable. And we've said that with Cliff Kingsbury his entire coaching career. It's just, you hit that wall in November, you need to adjust, and he hasn't done it. Some guys can, some guys can't. And we're finally hitting that wall. And then the Eagles, Saquon Barkley's going to swing a Super Bowl. At this point, I'm sitting here going, this is one of the teams that can win it, and it's not because of the quarterback. It's not because their defense is good enough, but It's because you made that swing of getting Saquon Barkley in the room to be able to hit explosive, hit home runs when we need to close out games, close out a massive division game. Like, it's these two teams to win the division, and if you win this game, you're giving yourself a 2-game edge for the rest of the season until they play again. But, yeah, I mean, the Eagles were very impressive, especially in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that's a big thing is how much of that explosive design for the Commanders is Jaden not being able to do it versus Cliff's college offense. And I tend to lean towards it being Cliff's college offense. I mean, Jaden Daniels has shown the ability throughout college and at moments throughout his rookie season to be able to hit those big plays. And Cliff is just going to be Cliff. So, moving on to the next game, though, it's going to be the Raiders at Miami. The Dolphins end up winning 34-19. It's the first game where we've seen this Dolphins offense kind of get back on track and look like this Dolphins offense that we saw and kind of would have expected and hoped for them to be. But really the big thing for me in this game was, I don't want to say this was the breakout game for Brock Bowers because he's looked, good throughout the season, but this is the first time now we're seeing Brock Bowers get like some national attention, and we can look at that and be like, wow, this guy is actually doing like very, very good things despite our concerns with him going to a team that took a tight end in the second round literally the year prior. But Brock Bowers has really, found his way, on the scene, and no shocker, he's looking a lot more like that wide receiver, big slot than he is a tight end, and working well for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Dolphins need to win these layup games at this point because I think they're still in the hunt graphic, and if you keep winning games, then you're all of a sudden going to be in the 7 seed. Like, the bottom of this AFC is wide open, to me at least. Like, I know we'll talk about how good Bo Nix was for the Broncos, but they're treading water to me, where you have the Dolphins and even though they lost, the Bengals are still kind of in that window to me. But yeah, I mean, Tua was finally back. Tua didn't turn the ball over, got it out on time, the basic Tua stuff, scored 30 points. Raiders aren't going to score 30 points, so pretty simple stuff from the Dolphins. Exactly.
And I will let you take the lead on this next one. Browns in New Orleans. Saints ended up winning 35-14. How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, that score is misleading. It was definitely a closer game till the end. Yeah, the Taysom Hill stuff, sometimes it really irritates me because we could talk about how good Taysom Hill was and how he had over 140 yards total from scrimmage or something and 3 touchdowns. All I remember is the fumble he had in the red zone and the interception he threw into double coverage on the trick play. Like, those are the only things I remember of the Taysom Hill experience watching as a fan. But, hey, it's fun to win. It's fun to win as a fan. I know I know there's a part of the fan base that wants us to tank fully and be bad and things like that. But the team's getting healthier. The team performed in the first 2 weeks. The team has a rejuvenated energy about them, and I like seeing them win games, and I like seeing them beat teams who are inferior to them. So I'm not going to complain with a 35-14 win in which, everybody played in tune, Just Taysom Hill had a 75-yard touchdown in garbage time to inflate those stats, but hey, it's cool to see touchdowns. It's cool to see 75-yard touchdowns.
Amen to that. And it's cool that you guys are winning these games without Olave. And that's like a big thing to me. You guys are winning these without that. And the big thing watching these last 2 games and in combination with those first 2 games is the big play threat from those wide receivers, which is funny because when I think of the Saints, I don't think of them being predicated on having like this deep, wide receiver, someone who can run these super deep routes, and get these big plays. But when you guys are winning games, it's because of 1, 2, 3 big plays, either with MBS or Rashid Shaheed, and it's working for you guys. I mean, MBS only had 2 catches, but he had like 89 yards and a touchdown on them.
Yeah.
And it's how weird it's very weird seeing how predicated you guys are on having that 1 to 2 big plays a game and how different it looks when you guys are hitting those in your guys' 4 wins versus when you guys don't have that. But shoot, if it's working, it's working.
Yep.
So
It's a race for explosives in the NFL, and the Clint Kubiak knows how to scheme up some explosives.
do you think he should stay, by the way? Now that you mentioned, do you think he should stay like another year?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think what I saw from the run game in the first 2 weeks before the Eric McCoy injury are only sustainable offensive linemen this season. I think he has a grasp on the O-line and getting the most out of Alvin, which in turn then gets the most out of Carr, which then gets the most out of the receivers, no matter who they are, Kevin Austin or MVS. Like, it doesn't matter. They're creating drives that are sustainable and scoring a lot of points where teams aren't as. It's weird. This would be a weird Saints team. Like, I think about it. It's like, do we win the Falcons game and this game if we win the Panthers game and keep Dennis Allen? I don't know, but it's interesting to say that the Saints are 2 games out of the first place in NFC South. Like, as a fan, I can talk myself into it. So.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to see how the head coaching stuff plays out, and if Darren holds that job, or if you guys find someone out and say Gary's staying and you can bring everyone else in. Moving on to the next game, a very fun game to watch. It really came down to the wire there. Colts went to New York and ended up winning 28-27. This is Anthony Richardson first start since getting benched, and this is the first game that I've seen Anthony Richardson, and I can confidently say he's looked good. He was able to hit the big plays. We've known that he's been able to do that. That's not something that we really needed to see. It's awesome that he's doing it. That's nothing we needed to see him prove. But he was actually able to get the shorter routes as well. He was 20 of 30, 271 yards and a touchdown. And then I'm pretty sure he had 2 more rushing touchdowns on the ground. But Anthony, that's the big takeaway, is this team is finally looking good with Anthony Richardson, and maybe this is what he needed, was to sit out and kind of learn, and he's looking good now, man.
Yeah, I mean, when they benched Richardson for Flacco, I was in a state of confusion, as I think a lot of Colts fans were. And I kind of went to the realization they're kind of sacrificing their rushing efficiency for passing efficiency, and then Flacco didn't give them any passing efficiency. So they had to turn back to Anthony Richardson, because now we can evaluate this guy. All right, Flacco is clearly not the answer. He's not winning us games. So we're going to go back to Anthony Richardson. And like you said, he was on time, on pace. That final drive, it blew me away to see him be able to do that 2 weeks removed from being benched. But overall, I'm so happy for the guy, because he deserves the shot. He deserves the opportunity. It was a weird decision when it happened, and I think a lot of backlash for it. And now it makes me believe that it might have been because he tapped himself out and they just wanted to sit him down, and then they didn't win games, and so the locker room kind of defaulted back to say, hey, let's give the kid, let's go back to the kid and let's figure this out as a team. And this was a game where Jonathan Taylor wasn't even good on the ground,
No.
But having that ability of Anthony Richardson creates so many opportunities for Taylor in the future if he didn't have a good day this game, but doesn't mean he can't bounce back next week.
Amen to that. Do you have any
Jets dumpster fire?
I was going to say any takeaways.
A.D. Mitchell cooked Sauce Gardner, so that was pretty cool for me.
Well, and that was the funny thing. There was that whole thing about how, coming into this game, how their interim head coach sat them down and did the whole like this is how you tackle and did like a tackling clinic, and reports are like Sauce Gardner like stormed out and was like, we don't need to learn how to tackle, like what is this? And then like in the first quarter just whiffed on a tackle. And
it's the
like,
grown man effect. It really is. Like that is why it is so hard to coach grown men in the NFL, and why so many coaches cycle in and out, because it is so hard to be able to, like, we all know that the Jets have a tackling issue. These guys are getting paid millions. They're arrogant enough to say, I've been here, I've been here a long time and I'm really good at football. I don't need someone telling me I'm not good. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yes. Moving on to another game, a game that we said we probably weren't going to spend much time watching at all. And going to be frank with you guys, I don't think I literally tuned into this game for a single second. The Vikings at Nashville ended up winning 23-13. Like I said, I didn't really watch this game like at all. Will Levis, looking at stat line, looks like a typical Will Levis stat line: 17 of 31, 295 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But looking at the stat line, the big thing is how is Will Levis your leading rusher with 18 yards? You're not going to win a football game in the NFL if your leading rusher for an entire game doesn't eclipse 20 yards. This is like, it's rough. It's going to be a very, very long year for the Titans if that has not already been obvious enough.
Yeah, you're in luck, buddy. I watched most of this football game because I live with a Titans fan. This was a weird one. This was a game that was actually getting me fired up as a fan. There was some rough calls went the Vikings' way. There was one in the red zone.
I did see the red zone one.
The Vikings had a super long drive, shoulder to chest, perfect textbook tackle, called unnecessary roughness. Brian Callahan lost his mind just as I did. And it was one of those plays where it was like, we finally got off the field. They had a 15-play drive, 8 minutes, no points, no unnecessary roughness, put it the 1 yard line. Sam Darnold QB sneaks it. Will Levis is due for one massive play a game, and he had one early in the third quarter, and it was called back because of the formation issues that we saw with the Ravens early in the season. Like the tackle was behind the center's belt line or whatever, and Calvin Ridley didn't get a touchdown, but Will Levis answered. He had a 98-yard touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Ikine. So that was pretty electric, but overall, it's just, they're not efficient enough. They're relying on so many just explosives to bail them out, and they don't have the talent around to create those explosives effectively enough that they can score more than 13 points. I don't know what the Will Levis decision is going to be, but, it's interesting because he does not look like an NFL quarterback. Like, I'll say his one interception was on like the last play of the game. He didn't turn the ball over. It's just they couldn't move the ball. His interception was like they were down by 2 touchdowns already, and they just jogged out there on their own side of the field, and he just threw a dumb one. He was just like, F it throw, Will Levis type throw, and it was intercepted. But overall, I don't know what the Titans are going to do. I think they're a fascinating team to watch in the draft.
Yeah, it's really wide open. I again have no clue what they're going to end up doing. If you're a Bears fan,
still bad. Like, it's
I'm not
bad.
surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, you have like 2 of your like future tackles, or at least 2 people you hope would be your future tackles there, in Peter and Latham. Lord knows if you're a longtime listener, you guys know how I feel about Latham, but he's a rookie and give him some time. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting, especially with the quarterback being as bad and them having as many needs as they have. And I'm really blanking on his name, and it's going to drive me crazy. Who's that Chiefs corner they traded for?
Oh, L'Jarius Sneed.
Oh my gosh, he's looked awful. he's looked bad. He has looked really, really, really bad this year.
And it's why the Chiefs chose to pay Chris Jones and not him.
Well, part of that has to be this the Spagnuolo effect. Like he's just that good of a defensive coordinator too, to be able to scheme that up and make him look as good as he did, for him to just leave and look as bad as he does now. So, but if you are a Bears fan, this is probably the time you want to check out for 5 minutes and then come back in. The Bears played the Packers at home in a game in which I would have hoped I could tune on here and say the Bears won 23-20 or 22-20. But that did not happen. The Packers blocked the game-winning field goal. Their curse continues. The Bears haven't beat the Packers in like 5 years now at this point. Packers end up winning 20-19. The Packers kept this a closer game than I thought, so good on the Bears for that. And the stat line doesn't look amazing for Caleb in this game. 23 of 31, 231 yards, doesn't have a passing touchdown. But Caleb actually looked good, so props to him. I saw him make like really good layered throws, and he did drive down the field and at least put in his team in position to win the game. They didn't. But I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you have to feel sick to your stomach with how that, last 10 seconds of that game turned out. I'm sorry, Bears fans. I'm sorry. So
yeah, this was the Christian Watson game. I think he had like 4 catches and like 160 yards. Like all of them were explosives. One of them was like he caught it, he dropped to the ground, the ball kind of moved a little bit. He got up and ran. They reviewed it. No dice. They still the Packers scored, took the lead. Jordan Love had a moron brain interception in the red zone that could have really killed them. I had Packers first half money line, so that really killed me. But overall, like it was just Caleb looked better. The offensive coordinator change was better. But the one issue I had the most with, he made the plays. My one issue was they got into field goal range with one timeout in 30 seconds. And they ran the ball one time. And so they got it from like a 50-yarder to a 45-yarder. And they didn't get on the ball. I was like screaming at the TV, get on the ball. Let's run the ball a few more times, and then we can call a timeout. Like, if we can make this a 30-yard field goal instead of a 45, that's a win. That's a bonus. You can't just, no matter how good your kicker is, you cannot take any kick for granted this year, especially after last week. Blocked field goal to win the game for the Chiefs, and then it happens this week. Like, it's, you can come at me and say, there's a flag, they shouldn't hit the center. I probably agree with you. But at the same time, Carl Brooks, Bowling Green Falcon, made a hell of a play. And so, at the same time, award the plays that are made on the field and don't struggle for a call, because you don't always get it. Believe me, I know. But it just, it is what it is, man. They don't beat this team. They don't beat them. And, like, it is what it is. And the Bears schedule, it gets even worse. Don't worry. It gets even worse.
Well, we'll get into it. I think if they have a chance to win a game, it's going to be the one coming up. But we'll get into that.
I think it's Thanksgiving.
Bit. Really?
The Lions just lose on Thanksgiving. I think it's
no, but the Lions are just way
cursed.
Good of a team. I think.
I know they were last year too, so like I don't know.
We'll see. We will see. You never know. I mean, it's the NFL any given Sunday, right?
Yeah, I remember last Thanksgiving, Jordan Love went in there and dealed. Yeah.
No, that was a moment where we're like, okay, Jordan Love actually might be like this guy.
The guy.
Speaking of the Lions, the fact that Doug Peterson still has a job after that game is baffling. The Lions played the Jaguars at home and just took it to them. Final score of that game was 52-6, and I had asked Ryan before the game had started Saturday night, who on the Lions offense should I take to score an anytime touchdown? And we joked after the game was over, I should have just taken everyone on that offense and I would have been okay. It was not even like, it was like fun to watch from like an offensive standpoint, but like at a certain point you're just like, oh my gosh, just like let this game be over. Like they're just bringing it to the Jaguars and there's nothing they can do. Again, I'm surprised that Peterson still has a job after losing that bad.
It's great for me and other Trevor Lawrence stockholders because Mac Jones in two games has averaged 6.5 points per game. He scored 7 last week, electric compared to the 6 this week. The Lions are they're just doing it with ease. They're beating everybody with ease, and they should. And so it's like it's fun to have an NFL team that does that. It's like we go into the NFL every year, and it's like you know. The Chiefs are struggling for 9-0, struggling with a blocked kick against the Broncos where we should be, in the fourth quarter and they should be up by 10. And then the Lions on the other side are just like, hey, we're going to beat the Cowboys by like 40. We're going to beat the Jaguars by like 40. We're going to kill the Titans by 40. Like they just keep doing it. They keep putting their thing all over everybody's face. It's just, it's electric football. Jamison Williams, I bet it every week at this point, like 100+ yards and a touchdown, and it finally hit this week, so that was pretty cool. Since week 1, I've done it, and it's only hit like once before, but it's fun to watch this team. It's fun to put money on them, and hopefully they make it all the way because they're fun.
Yeah. No, I think obviously a bit of a homer pick, but I think the NFC Championship game is probably going to be the Eagles and the Lions, and I'd be interested to see how that game would turn out. Moving on to the next game here, a game that was a little bit closer than I would have expected it to look. That's going to be the Rams at the Patriots.
Yes,
the Rams end up winning 28-22. Again, it was closer than what I would have thought the game to be. But to be frank, this is twice now that like Cam Kitchens has looked like good, which is like funny because at the start of the season last year, Cam Kitchens was arguably the number 1 ranked safety going into the draft, and then had a bad season, didn't really test too hot, and now he's looking like probably that number 1 ranked safety that we would have all hoped going into the season a year and a half ago now at this point. But, I mean, we're seeing what the Rams can do when they're fully healthy, and Matt Stafford is absolutely slinging the rock. He had 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. And, man, this Rams team can be dangerous when they're fully healthy.
Yeah, this was just ethical quarterback play at its finest. This was 2 guys slinging the rock from the pocket, making all the plays that they needed to make, and in the end, Drake May tried too much dip on the chip and overshot his seam ball, and that's where the Cam Kitchens interception came into play. But overall, watching Drake May play football, I have never been more confident in a rookie being good long term than Drake May has, because I said it going into the year, I don't want him to play a game because the supporting cast is so bad. Like, the offensive line is so bad. They have a first-time play caller who also isn't that, like, something to write home about. And he has come in, and since he took over the job for Brissett, has ignited a spark in the Patriots team and fans. And it's just, he's a playmaker. He just, and the thing about it was, like, he's not as chaotic as I saw when he played at North Carolina. I feel like he was a chaotic scrambler and things like that. Just, I need to make the play all the time. But he hangs in the pocket in the NFL. It's really fascinating to watch him play, because I'm like, you're not as frantic and chaotic as you were in college, and this is a step up. And you're with a worse supporting cast than anybody in the NFL. It's just, I cannot get enough of Drake May. I think he is going to be a super duper star, like, put it in writing. I believe that because of what I've seen this rookie year. This team is going to have a lot of, we still have football to play, and we still have more Drake May to see, but overall, this game was finally the writing that I'm like, man, I think this dude is he's gonna be one of the guys that we talk about on Sundays.
Amen to that, and I'm all here for it. I love Drake May. He was firmly my QB2, which is funny because both Jaden and May are looking great, so good for the both of them. Moving to another divisional matchup, or moving to a divisional matchup, Steelers versus Ravens. Steelers ended up winning this game without even scoring a touchdown. Steelers won 18-16 in a week in which it seemed like no kicker was hitting anything, Justin Tucker included. Chris Boswell went out there and said, "Hold my beer," and won this game for them. It was a really fun game to watch. Like I said in the preview of this game, when you're talking about these divisional teams, and specifically this division, playing each other, you never know how it is going to turn out, and this is the prime example of it. If you would have went into the week and told me the Steelers were not going to score a touchdown, I would have told you there was no way they were winning this game. But somehow they ended up pulling it out, and good for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think back to they stole 2 field goals on fumbles this game. Like, it was so weird watching. Like, I was watching at the end of the half. It was the only game that hadn't gone to half, so my full attention was on it. And Patrick Queen forces a fumble in Ravens territory. Like, they're trying to run out the clock to get to the halftime. They force a fumble, and they steal 3 points like that. They stole 3 points on a Derrick Henry fumble. They said it on the broadcast. It was like the first fumble in forever for Derrick Henry. And, they just continue to steal points. They don't need to score touchdowns. They kick red zone field goals, and they win the game. They have as many wins kicking only field goals this year as, like, 4 other teams. The Browns, the Jaguars, the Titans, and there's probably one more I'm forgetting. Maybe the Raiders. Like, it is so... And the Giants. The Giants are the one. My bad. But, like, just... It's so crazy to see Tomlin and, like... I don't even want to call it dark magic at this point, because dark magic, it disappears at some point, like the Chiefs it did. But he's just damn good at his job and gets the most out of his players, and they play super hard. Like, the 2-point conversion to tie it, like, they were making a big deal of, like, Derrick Henry's not on the field. Oh no. And it, like, Isaiah Likely and Nelson Aguilar, like, ran their routes into each other. And they didn't even know the routes or something on the biggest play of the game. It was so weird. Lamar was the runaway MVP for me going into the game and looked a shell of himself. All the stuff I talked about, how good of a passer he had looked. Like, he had been the best pure passer to me this entire season, and he looked like a shell of himself in this game. And it's just, this game is what Bears-Packers wants you to believe it is. This is the rivalry that every time it's on, just focus on it, bet the under, and you're going to have a blast. Like, that's what it is. And it's just a rock fight every single time. And the Steelers somehow always win it. It's just...
Yeah. And it
was a lot, but it's what it was.
Yeah. Extra added, umph to it, too, that it was Patrick Queen who caused that fumble. There's a whole stuff coming out this week that they didn't even offer him, like, a contract.
Also, Justin Tucker missed 2 50-yard field goals. That was another thing. Like, this game had everything that you want to believe Packers-Bears is. Like,
yeah.
This is the rivalry to me, and it never disappoints. It never disappoints, because you always get what you're expecting, and it's 2 teams to punch each other in the mouth. Who is going to be the last guy standing in the bar fight? Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, I could not agree more. It is always fun to see these 2 teams play against each other. Moving on to the next game here, Seahawks versus Niners. And, man, the Niners are just continuing their season from hell. They lost this game 20-17, and this Niners team just has not looked like the team that we have expected to come from them. So much that Niners fans are, like, calling for Shanahan's job, which is stupid, but that's besides the point. It has not looked good for them, and you would have hoped that this divisional matchup would have got them on track. Everyone outside of Kittle is like back, and maybe Purdy can look like Purdy of old now that he has all of his weapons, and came out and didn't even look good. And it was weird because Geno Smith didn't put on like this elite showing either. Purdy ended up throwing 159 yards, a touchdown and an interception, and Geno didn't even throw a touchdown. He had one interception, 221 yards. He had a good completion rate, but again, this is just like a season, from hell for them. It has not looked anywhere near what we would have hoped and expected for the Niners this year so far.
Yeah, I watched an interesting video from Manti Te'o. He talked about it in the offseason, so he kind of called it. It was just one of those things where it's like when you go on these runs, emotionally, you feel deflated. And everything about this season for the Niners, it feels deflating. Their lone bright spot is Brock Purdy, who hasn't really been there for a long enough period to experience the deflation that some of these guys have had. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like McCaffrey's hurt again, Trent Williams is down again. Now we have to settle this thing with Ayuk, and we pay him before the season, and then he gets hurt. Deebo Samuel gets pneumonia, of all things to catch during the football season, and they still somehow, like, they're still in this hunt. And at the end of the game, like, I think it was in the second half, Nick Bosa's limping around. He leaves the game. He's owning the right tackle, Abe Lucas, the entire game, and Geno Smith cannot do anything. He went out of that game. They scored both their touchdowns in the final 20 minutes that Nick Bosa wasn't on the field. Geno had 2 incredible scrambles to end the game. He's one of my favorite players to watch because, again, he's just one of those ethical quarterbacks who just hangs in the pocket. I'm going to get hit, but I'm going to deliver the ball on time. I'm going to get it to my playmakers because he's got so many of them. And he made the plays to win the game. And even after Zach Charbonnet tried to throw the game away, they ran like a fullback dive, 4th and inches, and he didn't get it. And I was like, wow, that was the play. But besides the point, Geno Smith is the man. The NFC West, as bad as it's been for the Niners, it is the Cardinals at 6-4, and then all 3, Seattle, San Francisco, and LA Rams, are all 5-5. So it's anybody's division, and they still all play each other like twice, once or twice. So this could get interesting in the West.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. Again, I think the Rams, if you ask me today, as of November 20th, I think the Rams probably end up winning this division. I would hope the Niners piece it together finally, but who knows, man? Who knows? Moving on, Falcons.
They needed this one. The Niners needed this one because their next 2 in Green Bay, in Buffalo Sunday night. Those are not places you want to play right now.
No, especially with the weather getting colder now too, and it's going to be interesting for sure. So, but the Falcons at Denver, they got absolutely whooped on. The final score of that game was 38-6. Bo Nix put on an absolute master class of a game. This is completing 28 of them, 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bo Nix is again, he's finding his stride, he's getting into it, and he's looking good. And I feel like I've found myself saying that the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. And right now, he's arguably looking like the best rookie quarterback as of today, as we speak. Again, a lot can change. We're just over halfway through the season, a lot of football to be played. But he's looking really, really good. And Kirk Cousins, man, Kirk Cousins looks bad. And maybe they were onto something drafting Penix in the first round. I gave him as much, flack as the next person. But if Kirk Cousins continues to look this bad, Penix might play as soon as next year. Like, Kirk has not looked good. He's had 1, maybe 2 games where I'm like, wow, good job, Kirk Cousins. But outside of that, he's played bad football. He looks confused. He's making stupid plays. Bijan has not looked like Bijan. It's just been a rough season for the Falcons, man.
Yeah, I mean, they're one-trick pony to me. Like, it's like the Commanders in a sense. Like, they want to get the run game going, and if they don't have it, they don't have it. And Bijan is still going to create some explosives just because he is that naturally gifted. But overall, my biggest thing with the Falcons is still the Penix pick. I don't care how bad Kirk Cousins is because this team cannot generate a pass rush, and there's a guy in Los Angeles who is game-wrecking, like in Jared Verse. So it's like this team, when they don't have it on defense, they don't have it in a huge way. This happened against Seattle, too. It's just like they just quit. Like, I don't think it's quitting, but it's just like when they don't have the pass rush, when they can't generate stuff, everything falls apart. And we have to blitz more. And when you blitz more, leaves more susceptible to downfield crossers, which is all Bo Nix seems to be hitting. Like, it's just these downfield crossers, and their guys get upfield in a hurry. But it shows Sean Payton knows what he was doing. I'm very happy for the Broncos. Like, it's cool to see Bo Nix thrive because I was one of the few kind of sitting on a ledge going, hey, Bo Nix isn't going to be bad. Like, I don't think he's going to be a star like the three guys at the top, but of the next kind of collection, I'd probably prefer Bo Nix over Penix and McCarthy and Rattler, who's my guy. Like, it just it is what it is. He has turned into just a professional quarterback who wins from the pocket, and I think they're finally hitting the stride. And it's very interesting to see after what happened week 1, where he looked lost, and everything was just quick and outside, quick and out of the hands like Oregon. But now he's hanging in there, and he's making plays downfield. So very, very cool for Bo Nix.
Yes, props to Bo Nix. Moving on to the game that probably everyone in America was looking forward to and had marked on the game that they were going to watch. Chiefs versus Bills. Bills ended up winning this one. As you said, the Chiefs' black magic is gone. It's gone. Good for them. Bills end up winning 30-21 in a game that Patrick Mahomes, man, this just does not – I don't know what is going on with Patrick Mahomes this season. Again, a lot of it probably has to do with just a lack of, like, actual NFL caliber pass catchers outside of, like, Kelsey. But they were due, especially if Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to be able to get anything done on offense. And they went in there. Josh Allen, as you were saying now, is probably the MVP candidate. And man, did the NFL try to give this one to the Chiefs, by the way, with that catch. For those who don't know, it was like a 4th down catch, or they went for it on 4th down. It was definitely an incomplete pass. He bobbled it as he went to the ground. He definitely caught the ball using the ground. They called the catch on the field. They replayed it, and they said call stands. Ended up not mattering because Patrick Mahomes ended up throwing the interception anyways. But, I mean, this is the game that we thought we were getting, and it didn't disappoint. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Buffalo that I noticed in this game is the entire second half they played with a lead. Like, that's been the biggest thing that Mahomes has overcome in his career. Is he can dig himself out of these holes and make these comebacks no matter what the score is. And Buffalo felt like they needed the lead in the second half, and they did not let up. They went for it on 4th and 2 that I was watching as a fan going, you better go for this. You have Josh Allen, you have a freak of nature, and they didn't take the ball out of his hands, or he didn't take the ball out of his hands. I don't know which one it was, but he went and he got it, and he carried some Chiefs to the end zone. Jim Nantz called it the play of the year. It was electric. I was jumping up and down. Like, it's cool to have villains in the NFL so you can have a moment like this. Like, as much as I appreciate the Chiefs and Mahomes and their defense and everything, it was cool to watch this game from the Buffalo Bills fandom and say, we finally got him. And it's finally to have that belief of, like, we can get this guy, if we get another crack at it. And this opens up the 1 seed. It's so weird that the Chiefs, only 1 loss in, they're half a game up on Buffalo, and it's because Buffalo has played an extra game and lost to Houston. And so it's going to be interesting the rest of the season, because I think these two teams are going to play again in January, and I hope they do, because it is entertaining football every single time.
Yeah, it is always very, very fun every single time these two teams play each other. And like I said, I would be like you said, I'd be very shocked if these two teams don't end up facing each other come playoff time. Moving to Sunday Night Football, Bengals at Chargers. Man, I feel bad for Joe Burrow. Chargers end up winning this game 34-27. Obviously, there's always going to be a piece of me pulling for the Chargers because of Jim. But gosh, I feel bad for Joe Burrow. The last 2 weeks, he has done everything in his power to win these games. And quite frankly, he probably should have won the last 2 games. And the team manages to not. And like I said, this is another very, very bad kicking game. Again, it seems like this week was just awful for all NFL kickers. But that's my main thing, is I just feel bad for Joe Burrow these past 2 weeks. He's done everything he can to win them, and they still have not been able to do that. But Justin Herbert, man, he's he's a bad man, and he looked like Lamar Jackson the way he was running on the ground this game too. So good for him. Good for Jim.
Yeah, I want to go over the Bengals schedule real quick. They're 4-7. They lost week 1 to New England by a possession in which it just looked wrong, looked off. They lose to Kansas City on the no call, or on the call. If the guy is a split second later, I don't think it's called. They lose to Jaden at home in that miraculous throw he made against cover 0 to Terry McLaurin. They beat Carolina. They lose to Baltimore at home because they don't know how to hold. Their punter misses the hold, and they lose that one in overtime. Then they string some wins against bad teams, the Giants and Cleveland. Then they lose to Philly. Their only loss on their schedule that is really like defiant loss, in my opinion. Good for your birds. Mm-hmm. They beat the Raiders, and then they lose to the Ravens on Thursday Night Football in a game they're leading at half. They lose on a 2-point conversion. Should there be a call? I don't know. Blah blah blah. Then they lose this one in which Evan McPherson misses 2 kicks that he has made in big clutch spots against the Chargers, and Mike Hilton also dropped a pick 6. It's just, sometimes this is football. This is like, sometimes it's just football for Cincinnati, and it's really hitting them rough right now. It's just like the bounces are not going our way, and you kind of think as a fan it's never going to bounce our way. But Joe Burrow, he continues to fight and hold them in games. And it's like I look at their schedule and I'm like, man, you got some games in there you can win. But again, it's the way football is bouncing for them. I don't know. And then the Chargers. I have the Chargers at 45-1 to win the Super Bowl. And it has now changed to like 23-1. I'm kind of all in on the Chargers. I'm all in on their defense. Jesse Winker is put together himself a bunch of studs. Just signing guys. Just Christian Fulton, 1-year contract. Aloli Gilman is a true player at free safety, a true center fielder. The way they covered Chase in this game, like we're taking away Jamar Chase, and then Justin Herbert is a guy good enough to win it all. So as a Charger, I'm kind of all in on the Chargers because, you know, my money's on the line, but overall, like Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, we knew this was going to be a great combo, and it's been all of it. It's everything. It's been all of it.
Everything we could have hoped for. So, no, man, you
were supposed
mentioned
to charger that game. They were supposed to charger that away. They had a massive lead at halftime. Joe Burrow climbs his team back. They should have taken the lead. The Bengals out-chargers the Chargers. Like, that's what happened.
Yeah. Yep. And Diane Henley, by the way, one of my guys, has looked very good thus far in the season. So
he's always in attack mode.
It's wild.
It's awesome.
It is wild. Love it.
I think it's just their defense.
Hey, that's Minter for you, man. Jesse Minter's a dog. I love Jesse Minter. He is
I
fantastic.
said Winker, dude. That's a baseball player. Oh my god.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna
Oh
say
my
that. I was just
god.
gonna let
I
that
love
slide.
that guy. I want him to be the coach of the Saints, and I don't even know his name.
And that's what I was gonna like. That's where I was going with that. You had texted me and Ryan, and you're like, a name to watch could be Jesse Minter this season. And to be frank, the way he has his defense playing, I mean, again, they let up 27 points, but I mean, he's just I love Jesse Minter. Obviously, this is going to be a special place in my heart for all of that Michigan team and everything, but just a name to watch, and that's Matt's call. That's not my call, and I think he's spot on with it. And then Monday Night Football went pretty much exactly how everyone would have expected it to go. Texans went into Dallas, ended up beating them 34-10. A game that, again, we all probably expected it to go exactly this way. Really, the big thing is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has a swagger back this season, and this team looks like a different team when Joe Mixon is in versus when Joe Mixon is out. And it's a very stark difference for them. But, I mean, Joe Mixon from the first drive of the game looked like he was going to control this game, and he did exactly that.
Yeah, he's only had one game this year where he's been lower than 50 rush yards that he finished the game. He had 25 against Chicago, but he left the game with injury. Actually 100 yards. Like every game except Detroit's game, he's had over 100 yards, and he has been a vital piece of the Texans, of my heart, of fantasy team, my Super Bowl bet, with a massive Super Bowl bet with the Texans. But overall, like, even without Will Anderson, they still generated so much impact in the pass game and in the pass rush department. It's super sim through the rest of the year for Dallas. Like, and if we're gonna do that, why aren't we putting in Trey Lance? Is my thought. Like, you paid the guys, you paid Dak, you paid CeeDee Lamb. As much as people want to think they're gonna draft Shedeur Sanders and hire Deion Sanders as the coach, those guys are there to stay. And I think they're going to build it in their image in the offseason, get a good pick, and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, Dallas in primetime is ugly, and we all have to watch it Thanksgiving, so that's a blast for everyone. Is hopefully you have your Thanksgiving in the afternoon, so that's prime nap time, It just,
there you go.
You don't have to watch Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush, but, hey, it went exactly as we thought. Like, the Texans steamrolled the Cowboys, and the Cowboys look like a shell of themselves last year. Like, and that falls on Jerry Jones, because they
ownership again.
Awesome.
Man.
They were awesome last year. They were 13-4, I'm pretty sure, last year. Like, they were tremendous. They got the 2 seed, and then Dallas just exposed all their weaknesses. They lose their defensive coordinator. They don't remodel anything in free agency or, like, the draft. They just tried to plug in Tyler Guyton for Tyron Smith, and that went beautifully for them, apparently. It's just, they lose Ferguson really early in this game, and it's just, it's super sim. Let's get to the end for Dallas. Like, I'm done talking about them, so let's be done, man.
Yeah. Again, I couldn't have said it any better than what you did. So we'll move on to the next segment here, guys.
Just when you thought it was safe to play the underdog, we put you on Upset Alert.
Yes, so we're going to kind of go over the Upset Alert kind of games to watch. I have 6 for you guys. How many do you have?
I have 1.
1. All right, so I'll let you start off with your 1.
The Carolina Panthers.
Yes.
Just out of sheer narrative. Bryce Young is smiling again. He's winning football games. The Chiefs are coming off a loss. They're going to be looking ahead, looking past the Panthers, because they play on Black Friday against the Raiders, who they lost to last year. They're going to be looking past Bryce Young, and he's going to deal. That's my only.
I'm all here for that. For those wondering, The Chiefs are favored in that game a whopping 10.5 points. So maybe Panthers to cover. But yeah, that I'm all for that take. And I would have been even more for that take if they had beaten the Bills. That's besides the point. I got 6 for you guys here, all of which are divisional games besides my last 2. So we're really sticking to my narrative here when it comes to divisional games and the way I've picked my upset alert. At this point, the listeners can probably guess which games I'm going to have as my upset alert. The first one's actually going to be the game tomorrow, Thursday Night Football. Steelers are favored 3.5 in this game against the Browns. As we had talked about with this division, you never know. Every single time they play each other, it is always a dogfight. It's just going to be really, really fun to watch. I found a very fun prop to watch for this game, and we'll get into that in 2 segments. But again, you never know how these games are going to go when these teams in this division are playing against each other. And maybe Jameis is going to have a famous Jameis moment and is going to ball out. So, moving on to the next one, another divisional game. And this Bears team is slowly taking the spot for my Jets team, where I'm like, maybe this is the week that they put it together. Maybe this is the week that they put it together. And I know they're not, but they're taking that Jet spots for me this week. Vikings are favored 3.5. As I said, there's not a lot of games that I can look to at the rest of their schedule, if any, that I can say the Bears are going to win this one. This is probably going to be the closest one outside of Seattle. Moving on to the next one, again, shocker, another divisional matchup. Patriots at Dolphins. As you were raving about Drake May, you just never know. Dolphins are favored in this game, 7.5 points. So maybe keep an eye out for the Patriots to cover that. These two teams always play each other very, very close over the last 10, 15 years. And then this is my last divisional matchup. This is going to be in the 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock slate, depending on your time zone. The Cardinals versus Seahawks. Cardinals are actually favored, even though this is played in Seattle. Cardinals are favored -1.5. This was more so taking the divisional aspect out of it. These are 2 very evenly matched teams in terms of skill level. So I could really see this going either way. And then moving on to the last 2 games, these are my 2 non-divisional matchup games. It's going to be a game that Matt had already mentioned once before. It's going to be the Niners at Packers. I could see this game going either way. Again, the Niners have all of the pieces to win this game. It's just a matter if they can put it together. Hopefully Kittle's playing this week for them. But the Packers, when they look hot, they look good, and they're playing in Lambeau. It's starting to get cold. We all know that's going to be one of the toughest places in all of football to play in late November, early December, and January. Lambeau, you never want to play there. And then the last one, I think I'm kind of just doing this for my own sanity. The Eagles at the Rams. Eagles are favored 2.5. This is me just probably being pessimistic more than anything. The Eagles are probably due for a loss here soon. So that's the reason I threw that on there, to just protect my mental sanity in this one. But do you have any thoughts on any of those 6 games before we move on to Pigskin Pickup?
I can't believe Seattle's not favored.
Yeah,
I think it's like a pick'em. So I get you can't really lay the line with either team, but I'm all over Seattle. I've loved this team all season.
Especially in Seattle, too, which is weird. Mm-hmm. So, but moving on to our next segment here, guys.
You think you know football? Well, prove it. This is Pigskin Pick'em.
All right. Ryan's picks here, so let me... We both did fairly well. We were both right around 500. He was just a little bit higher than me. He went 9-5. I went 8-6, putting our overall record at 104-60 for Ryan and 98-66 for me. Now 6 games back. hoping to recuperate some of that this week. But I'd imagine we're pretty, stride and stride this game. And it sure looks like it just looking at the quick glance. But we'll start off week or Thursday night football. Ryan went the Steelers. I'm going to follow him here. I'm going Steelers as well. Where are you going with this one?
I'll ride the Steelers. I think
There's a better team.
Again, it's going to be a rock fight. I was chuckling while you were talking about this game because this game has a mighty over/under of 36.5. So that one could be a fun sweat to bet the over. But I think Jameis is going to sling it around, but I think Jameis also gives them the ball. So I'm going to go Steelers. They just win.
Yeah, that's just the Mike Tomlin mindset.
Bet Boswell to make 2 field goals. Just keep doing it. I've done it every week this year. I've put it in parlays. I've done it straight bets on their primetime games, like all season. And the only game I can remember that it was like a devastating loss that it didn't hit was the Dallas game. The primetime Dallas game. That's one of their losses. They have 2 losses this year. That's one of them. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is a little wild. Again, I have just a wicked game special for you guys for this one when we get into Pigskin Payout. But moving on to the first slate of games on Sunday, that's going to be your noon or 1 o'clock games, depending on where you guys live. But that's going to be the Titans versus Texans. I would be very shocked if we all don't agree on this one, but me and Ryan are both going with the Texans.
Yeah, I have Texans.
Yep. Moving on to one of my upset alerts here. Vikings at the Bears. Ryan is going Vikings. I have this game on upset watch for a reason, and I'm going to hurt myself, but I'm be rooting for the Bears. Willing to be vulnerable here with this one because the Vikings have not looked good.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vikings.
I'll ride that one alone.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the start of the season, I will say I thought for sure that they were going to sign Sam Darnold to a new contract, but I don't know if I can say the same now. Mm-hmm. So, moving on to another divisional matchup, Cowboys at Commanders. I'm sure we are all picking the same team here. I'm going Commanders, Ryan's going Commanders, and I'm assuming you are also going Commanders.
Yeah, give me Washington. 10 points is a lot, though.
Yeah, 10 points is a lot. That might be something to watch out for, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they just, hang up 40 on this defense. I would not be surprised at all. Yeah. Moving on, again, to another divisional matchup. Patriots at the Dolphins. Ryan went Dolphins. Ooh.
You cut out, buddy.
But I'm going Dolphins.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go Dolphins. Pretty easily. I'm actually tailing off of my I lost a no sweat bet at some point, and so I bet the whole entire slate because I don't know if you've seen those, but everyone bets the entire slate and dudes are taking it to Monday Night Football. So I did it this week and just these picks are gonna be chalky from me.
We're all here for it. So I'm assuming we're all going chalk with the next one, Chiefs at Panthers. I'm assuming we're all going Chiefs.
Yeah, Chiefs, but I don't know. I love the 10 points. Jonathan Brooks is back, or he's arrived. He's not back. He's arrived to the NFL. I'm excited to see that backfield. I'm excited to watch the Panthers.
It's gonna be fun, man. As am I. We'll see if he can get anything going on the ground. Him and Chuba, man, they might make a very dangerous backfield for at least the next 3 years. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Keeping up with the chalk here. Lions at Colts. Ryan went Lions. I am going Lions as well.
Yeah, Lions.
Shocker.
Give me the Lions.
The
noon slate, man. A lot of
the noon slate.
The only game on the noon slate that has a less than 6 point spread is the Vikings Bears, and we already talked about it. Wow.
again, a lot of games like pick all of the noon slate games outside of that Bears game and see how much money that gets me. But moving on to the 3:00 slate, Broncos versus Raiders. I'm going Broncos. Ryan is also going Broncos, and I'm going to assume the same for you.
Yeah, if you can bet against the Raiders, bet against the Raiders. I'm going Broncos.
Amen to that. This is one of the games I wish I would have hoped me and Ryan picked differently on, the Cardinals versus Seahawks. I had this as an upset watch because, again, the Cardinals are favored. I'm writing the Seahawks. Ryan is also writing the Seahawks. What are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm going to ride the Seahawks with you. Yeah.
Oh, no. This is looking dangerous. This is looking like we are going to be picking every game the same outside of that Vikings game. This is a rough week. And then the Niners at the Packers, a game, again, I was hoping to maybe get a leg up on Ryan for, but I'm going Niners. He's going Niners as well.
Yeah, I'm going Niners.
Oh no, this is just
this is a can't fake desperation game. It's we had one in college football with Georgia. Like, it's desperation time. You need this game if you're the Niners, so I think they pull it out. That's my analysis. You can't fake desperation.
Moving on to Sunday Night Football. Eagles at the Rams. Again, I hedged it by saying this is an upset alert, but come on. I'm going to be sitting on the couch in my Eagles Kelly Green Devontae Smith jersey. Eagles are winning. Ryan has the Eagles winning. I am a little worried, but I mean, if Q can continue to lock down whoever he's on and you just throw Cooper DeJean in the slot on Cup, I think it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I'm going Rams.
Oh, you're going to break my heart there, man. You're going to break
Rams.
My heart, and it's going to hurt even more when you're right.
I'm kind of I play so many bets, so it's like, but I placed a division bet right after they won against the Vikings. I put the Rams, the Lions were plus money, and the Eagles were plus money. Both of those are like 500, like minus 500 favorites, but the Rams are still like in that 400. So I'm kind of like riding my division bet with this one. Like, that's what I'm doing. I need the Rams to win one of these swing games, you know what I'm saying, to catch up. While if the Packers win and maybe like the Seahawks win, that'd be good for me. But hey, I'm taking the Rams. I'm not betting against Matthew Stafford.
This is a game I actually think could go either way. Knowing my luck, we're all going to pick the same. Ravens. Adley going Ravens as well.
You cut out. Did you guys say Ravens?
Yep, we both rode with the Ravens.
Give me Harbaugh. Give me the Harbaugh.
Oh my gosh. You had
Bowl.
the guts to do what I did not want to do.
In the Harbaugh Bowl, did you know November 25th is actually the anniversary of the Harbaugh parents? Jim Harbaugh told me that. Not like personally, but I heard him say that. So excellent scheduling by the NFL. Honestly, impeccable scheduling. This game I'm so excited for. Two of my favorite players, Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson. But I'm going Chargers. Like, give me Harbaugh.
Oh my gosh. I'm here for it. You're doing...
Give me all of it. Both the LA teams are beaten favorites in LA.
There you go. You're doing what I didn't have the cojones to do myself. But no, for clarification, no, Jim Harbaugh told Matt specifically that this was the anniversary. He told Matt.
I asked him.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted.
He got the inside scoop on that. So the story got broke.
Yeah.
Be next segment. Maybe not.
They say winning isn't everything, and that may be true in some cases. But right now, let's make some money. It's time for Pigskin Payout.
Shocker, some Wi-Fi issues on my end. But we're back. Here comes that special I was kind of teasing since the start of Pigskin Pick'em and Upset Alert here. I threw $5 on both of them, but right now if you go to Draft or FanDuel, you can get a special for Nick Chubb and Najee Harris to both get 5 rushing yards in each quarter. 5 rushing yards is at plus 650, which is wild to me. Those are amazing odds. And then if you bump that up to 10 rushing yards per quarter for each running back, I got it at plus 4,300, but as I was checking, like the odds are like dropping. So if you like it, like get on it now, because come game time, I'm sure the odds will be different. That's obviously not my parlay I have for you guys, but those are just like 2 wicked. I'm going to come back on FanDuel will steal $10 from me, but here we are.
Yeah. I just want to, for people who are like, thinking about it, like, oh, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, they're not that good. But like when I saw that, when you sent that to me, I looked at it. Nick Chubb this season averages 13 carries, which equates to about 3 carries a quarter. Najee is at 17. So like if each guy reaches their average of like 3 carries per quarter, like those odds, I lost my mind. I put money on it too.
I had to. It, like, again, I'm going to come back and look stupid, but especially with
if
these
the over under is
too.
If the over under is 36.5, like they're really telling us.
That's exactly what I'm saying, but I don't know. Moving on to my parlay that I actually have for you guys. It's going to be a nice and simple spread parlay. It's going to be the Patriots to cover 8.5 against the Dolphins, because we ride with Drake May. We love Drake May. Texans to cover, obviously Patriots plus 8.5. Obviously not 9.5. Texans to cover minus 6.5.
Cutting out.
Team, why am I blanking on? It's for them to win. Sweating out the most is going to be Ravens minus 3. That brings your parlay total at plus 482. If you end up winning,
Repeat that quick for the fans, because you cut out.
Of course I did. Patriots to cover plus 8.5, Texans to cover minus 6.5, and Ravens to cover minus 3. So that's just the Ravens to win by a field goal. Final odds for that parlay is going to be plus 482, which is $10 to win $58, if I'm doing my math correctly.
Yeah, all right. I'm crafting. I'm going to craft.
This is like by far like one of, I don't want to say bits, because it's definitely not like a bit, but like one of my favorite things that Matt does is like he comes on and he knows this is like this is a segment we do every week, and he logs into the app, he does no research, and he kind of just goes with what his gut is telling him. And to be frank, that's what you got to do. When you think too much about it, that's when your parlays don't hit. So I'm here for just going in the app, clicking buttons, and saying this is what.
Yep. All right. Man, there's just a lot of spreads that I don't like. Like, there's a lot of points here. There's a lot of points to be scored. But right now, for the fans at home, I have right now Bears Vikings under 39.5. It's kind of a sweaty one, but they hit it last week. The Bears did. And the Vikings hit last week. I think the Flores defense gets to Caleb and they don't score a lot. Buccaneers 5.5, land 5.5. They win by a touchdown. If I have a chance to bet against Tommy DeVito, the team I'm betting on to score more than a touchdown than Tommy DeVito, I'm going to bet it most of the time. And then the last one, Niners money line. I'm just going to take the Niners money line. I can't bet any touchdowns right now, so I'm not going to pick any touchdowns. But Niners money line, that's a 3-legger. Brings it to plus 633 on FanDuel. So let me throw enough here. How much do I want to win? You know, that's kind of the conundrum you run into. You know it's locked, like you know you're gonna win, but it's how much do I want to win? Do I want to rob the sports books or not? But yeah, I like those odds. I like the Buccaneers pretty easily. Just Tommy DeVito, bet against Tommy DeVito. The Vikings Bears under 39.5. If Caleb scores more than 20 points, I'd be shocked, and I don't think the Vikings are gonna blow out the Bear. Like, I don't think their defense is that dynamic to dominate the Bears defense. And then the Niners are just going to win. The Niners need this win. They're going to win. Shanahan's going to pull it out. So that's my picks.
We're here for it.
And there's my
Moving on to our there you go. Moving on to our last segment, or second to last segment here.
Pro football isn't the only game in town. Let's take a stroll to Ben's College Corner.
An electric week of college football coming up for me, obviously. Riding my Hoosiers, which is going to be fantastic. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, we can get into everything that had happened this prior week of football. And obviously, to start, we're going to first take a quick little glimpse at the rankings. We're not going to spend too much time looking at this because we're going to spend more time looking at the more important one, which is the bracket. But a whole lot of normal stuff. If you're used to the way this is kind of looked, you're looking, where's BYU? Well, BYU lost. BYU is all the way down here at 14. We'll kind of get into my thoughts on SMU not being in the top 12 in a little bit when I go into the bracket. This is what our top teams looks like, and as always, and then like, there's no way that's right. No, that is right. I don't know why BYU's. Anyways, this is what our bracket looks like. This is the number one thing that it's the Sugar Bowl, by the way. Woo! But this is kind of the way our bracket is looking right now. I have issues with Penn State being ranked here at 6. I have issues with Notre Dame being ranked here at 8. Lord knows if Notre Dame plays Alabama right now, Alabama is going to blow the doors off of Notre Dame. But really, this is where it would get fun. Notre Dame playing against the Lane Train, or IU playing against the Lane Train, winning that, hopefully, and going into Austin. Man, that would be just as I would have hoped for the Michigan-Texas stuff last year, not to get too hung up on that and rub salt into the wound there. Just as I hoped for the
Michael
Michigan...
Penix game I've ever seen. Sorry. I'm sorry.
But not just as I would have hoped for that. This is another thing that I hope, and obviously this isn't the final bracket. We still have 2 more weeks of college football, plus the champion stuff. So we have of football left. So this Austin, Texas in play. And I like that Boise State is this 4th seed and getting the bye over our Big 12 team because BYU stinks. But do you have any thoughts on the way the bracket is looking right now? And more specifically, thoughts on the Nittany Lions down here at 6?
Just overall, I was interested. Someone did it, and it was hypothetical matchups for every game. And Ohio State was 3 touchdown favorites against BYU. Alabama was a pick'em with Notre Dame. Georgia was a pick'em in Penn State or in State College, and then Ole Miss was like 2.5 against IU. I think that's so fascinating to think about if all of the SEC teams have to travel to the cold up north for those games, except and even BYU to an extent is traveling to Columbus. So like that's a fascinating topic to think about. But overall, like it's just the SEC, man. The SEC talk has been very fascinating. The Indiana talk has been fascinating. Penn State, I think, is just too high. I've said it. I don't think they've done anything major. Like, it's just it gives me graces that like Indiana's not gonna fall off a cliff, in my opinion, if they lose to Ohio State, which they're like 12-point underdogs. If they lose, they lose. Because Penn State lost to Ohio State, and they haven't lost a game since. Like, they haven't lost any other game other than that game, and they're still, like, are they still 4? They're higher than Indiana right now. So it's like, I'm like, I don't know what the committee is saying to me. BYU falls from, what were they, like 8? They were 8. They fall to 14, behind SMU, a team they beat, behind, like, all the SEC teams, whatever. But, like, they have a higher strength of schedule, higher strength of record because they're 9-1 than most of those teams, and they fell that far. The committee is trying to put us in a position where, like, there's no chance we get 2 ACC teams, unless you count Notre Dame kind of as an ACC team. There's no chance we get 2 Big 12 teams, and God knows we're not getting 2 Group of 5 teams. Like, it's just, it's a lot of, we still have a lot of football. Like, and I'm so fascinated by Conference Championship Weekend because, like, Boise's not locked up to me for the Group of 5 because what happens if they play like UNLV, who they lost to or they beat UNLV by like 3? What happens if Ashton Jeanty goes into a game and they just put 8 in the box and they just say, "We dare you," and they lose somehow, and then Army and Tulane are going to face in the American? That's already confirmed.
Yeah.
Army versus Tulane is essentially a playoff game at that point because I'm pretty sure the Mountain West Championship is on a Friday this year. So it's just, there's so much to talk about. Is Texas good? I don't know. Like, I watch the team every week. I think they're pretty good on defense. The quarterback still gives me so much anxiety. I'm not ready for the A&M game yet, especially for Ewers, but just, I'm rambling. You talk to me. I want to just kind of ramble back and forth about what you have with the rankings so far.
No, man, the 2 big things, too, as you were saying with the Group of 5 team, where it gets really interesting is they're playing this week. If Army manages to win against Notre Dame, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but anything can happen. Mm-hmm. If Army ends up winning against Notre Dame and wins the American, I could see the case for them to be that Group of 5 team over Boise State. Yeah. Because they have that very solid win against, at the time, a top 6 team against Notre Dame and win, and I'd be hard-pressed for them to not make it in over Boise. And I love Boise and Jeanty and all of that stuff. But if they manage to win against Notre Dame, I think they deserve that spot over Boise.
Yeah, Boise State's like biggest win this year, to me, is their loss by 7 to Oregon. No, Oregon is flat out the number 1 team in the country, and they played them closest than besides Ohio State. Like, that's been their biggest win this year.
With the ranking.
Wow, he's cutting out a little bit.
Oh, am I back?
Yep.
Awesome. Is SMU being ranked at 13? SMU's 1 loss is against ranked, top 10 ranked at that, BYU. When you look at a team like Notre Dame, whose loss is against the 7th ranked team in the MAC, NIU, what what does SMU have to do now outside of winning
Yeah.
the Big 12, or is it the Big 12 they're in?
ACC.
Or the ACC, for them to like make that. And it's upsetting. I don't know what is going on and why they're not like in this conversation. And they've shown to be a good football team, especially after, you know, the whole Preston Stone stuff. And they've shown to be a good football team at that, with your one loss going up against BYU, and they barely lost that game. The final score of that game was 18-15, and they're ranked at 13. And again, you look at Notre Dame all the way, what was it, 8? At 6. It's just the whole, it just drives me biased, or it drives me crazy with the brand bias. And it goes back to your team that looks good and has one loss. So we'll go ahead and we'll put you over these smaller schools that have arguably looked better and have worse, or I guess better losses. I mean, all losses are bad, but have better losses. I just, the brand bias of the committee will always drive me crazy, and it's nothing that will ever change. And it just drives me off the walls. I cannot stand it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Right now, SMU is 6-0 in the ACC. Did I lose them? I lost them, but I'll just ramble about what is going on in college football. But overall, like the 4 SEC teams, the 4 2-loss SEC teams, like if they're all 2-loss, the committee pretty much told us they're all gonna get in. Like they're gonna get in. If whoever, like, and that's what's so, it's gonna be awkward for like conference championships, that like what happens if I say SMU beats Miami in the championship, and Miami is still ranked higher than those 2-loss teams. They're knocked out. They're knocked out now. Like, and that's so weird to think about, because now conference championships, like, yeah, you want to get the bye, but it's like for Miami, it's either we get the bye or we're out. Like, and if you don't take them out, then you're just going to drive up a wall a Tennessee team who's only 2 losses. I can't. Is Arkansas a tough game in Fayetteville? Texas won, no problem. But and then losing to Georgia in Athens, like it's just both night games in the SEC. It's just like it's gonna be weird. This is my issue, and it will continue to be my issue with the 12-team playoff, is that expansion's never gonna stop. Like, we're gonna get 14 at some point, because this is they picked a great year to have 12 teams. But, like, 14 teams, 16 teams are going to deserve it. Like, the Big 12, I don't know if anyone's really talking about the Big 12. BYU travels to Arizona State this week. And that game is basically a playoff game. Because if BYU loses, they're not going to they don't control their own destiny to the Big 12 championship. If Arizona State wins, they take over that destiny that BYU had. So we could have a Big 12 championship, because Colorado, sneaky Colorado, controls their own destiny. They have to go to Kansas. They have to go to Lawrence, Kansas, who just beat BYU. Kansas could end up being the biggest spoiler in this whole playoff party, to where we have the bracket that we just saw, where Boise State or Army or Tulane, who's killing people, by the way, like, their only losses, like, the Big 12 is the 12 seed. The Big 12 is the 12 seed, and the Group of 5 is all of a sudden getting a bye, which was unfathomable to all of us, and it seems like it is. But it's very interesting. But let's segue into the game of the week. IU Ohio State. Like, this is the game that everyone's going to have their eye on. If you're an SEC fan, you're begging for Indiana to lose. because you need one of your 2-loss teams to get over that 1-loss team. And if you're Ohio State and you lose this game, you have 2 losses. How far do they drop? Like, Indiana's, like, possibility for this weekend is they could be the best team in the country or number 2 with the locked up playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship, or they're like 13th, like BYU. Like, they just tumble because everybody's just been begging for this loss. Like, it's so weird. It's fascinating.
It is, yeah. And that's where it gets interesting, too, again, with the OSU stuff. If OSU loses to IU, then the conference championship, no matter what, is booked for the Big Ten. It will be IU versus Oregon, no matter what. That is guaranteed, because IU could still lose to Purdue, and they will still have that one win over Ohio State, in which Ohio State beat Penn State. So IU wins this weekend. They already have their spot booked up. Oregon already has their spot booked up. Like, that's confirmed and whatnot. But again, the interesting part.
No, he cut out again. He was cooking.
Lose, and then if they win, how far does Michigan fall? It's really, really interesting. I'm pumped for the game, obviously, and if we're gonna kind of dig into the details of that game, IU's path to winning that, I don't want to say it's simple, but with OSU, for those who aren't informed on this, lost their center. I think he messed up his Achilles in practice. So he's not going to play in this game, which hurts their run game, in which I have already extensively talked about that being an issue, against a defense that has been the number one producing defense in run defense and tackle for losses. So good for them. You throw D'Angelo Pons on Jeremiah Smith and you say, all right, what are you going to do now? So IU has a very clear path of winning this game. I think it's going to be really interesting. I ranted about it. This game does not deserve to be in the noon slot. It needs to be a night game, and it will never happen because of TV deals, which is so extraordinarily frustrating. I had talked about. Game, make it in over a 2-loss SEC team. And then if IU loses, again, can you justify ranking a 2-loss SEC team over a 1-loss IU team? So this one game in particular can swing a lot of the seeding in terms of teams that make it in. So absolutely love it. And then we already mentioned the other 3 games that I wanted to talk about. That was the BYU versus ASU game. As you said, if Arizona State wins that one, they control their own destiny to go and play Colorado for the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Kansas plays Colorado as well. As you had mentioned before, Kansas went in there and beat BYU, which was a game I told you guys to watch out for, and I told you it was going to be a possibility that they do it, and they did it. And then Army versus Notre Dame. I do think Notre Dame wins this game. I think it's going to be that same script that we saw for Navy. If Notre Dame can get out to a hot start, the game is all going to be over basically out, the entire second half. They can go up by 2 scores. You can pretty much call that game as soon as that happens. But if Army wins, you get into that weird conversation that we mentioned about with the 2 group of 5 teams. So again, this is and if it wasn't obvious, so this is going to be football stuff before we give our final thoughts.
You cut out. What were you saying?
Shocker. Is there anything that you wanted to add in college football before we give our final thoughts here?
Travis Hunter, he's pretty good at football.
Really?
It's pretty remarkable what he's doing, and it sucks that it's in a year where like him and Ashton Genty should be co-Heismans in my opinion. Like they are both in a year where we didn't have a quarterback like just grab the award, where it feels like the last how many years since Devontae Smith, the COVID year, like we've had the quarterback grab the award pretty early, but he's doing remarkable things. But at the same time, like I still like a Genty bet, by the way. Like I've looked at the odds, and Ashton Genty just playing from a pure odds market, like what happens if Travis Hunter's not playing championship weekend and Boise State is playing in the Mountain West Championship and Genty drags his team to a playoff berth, and Colorado's like out of it. Like what if that happens? Like I just think Travis Hunter at minus 400 or whatever he is like too high, but like both those guys are remarkable, and it's been a blast to watch them play football this year. But overall, like, just let's root for some more chaos. Like we root for chaos, except Texas losing. Like that's
and IU.
Listen, I'm kind of on the board of the chaos. Like I just want to see what message boards look like if IU loses and they don't drastically fall like BYU, because I don't think they will. Because I think the committee putting them as high as 5, where they weren't doing that with BYU. They were like, BYU's borrowed time. We know Indiana's a good football team. And I just don't believe Indiana's going to be held out of the playoff if they lose this game at this point. Like, there's so many people on one side or the other saying, yeah, they should be held out. They didn't play anybody. The other side is they've beaten everybody. Like, they've killed everybody. The only game that was rough was the Michigan game. But some of us struggle against Michigan. It happens, not the Horns. But just overall, I'm rooting for chaos, because I that's what we have to do with the 12-team playoff. Like I said it when it was announced. Like, how many of these teams can win a national championship? There's probably 6, maybe. If we're being nice, we're saying 6. Like even. It's just, and that's my whole point of the playoff. Like, this would be such a more rejuvenated conversation with Indiana and Ohio State if we still had the 14 playoff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we're kind of past that, and we're now just debating things that nobody knows. We're debating strength of record. We're debating strength of schedule. We're debating who won and who's the best win, who's the best loss. All of it doesn't matter. Like it's just, and it sucks because like Notre Dame, I said it when it happened because I was with you. It was like they lost to NIU, and I was like, wow, this is a massive win for NIU. They were 4 touchdown dogs, and I remember going home that night. It's like, wow, their schedule, like Notre Dame's still like they're not out. And where in years past, when you lose to NIU, that's your season. And, like, Notre Dame's still going to be around. It's just, it's weird. It's a weird place we're in. It's the first one we've ever had. The 4-team, I think that was the first 4-team was when it was, like, TCU and Baylor. And then Ohio State won, like, 59-0, so they got in. And they won the national championship, so it was, like, justified. And then, like, last year, with Florida State. Like, Florida State's undefeated. They lose their quarterback. They put in Alabama, and Alabama loses. But they justified it with an amazing game in Alabama and Michigan, where I don't think Florida State with Brock Glenn would have gave you that game. Or Tate Rodemaker, whoever it was.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, we're in uncharted territory, so everyone doesn't know how to react to new information. It's just, it is what it is, and I'm kind of like sitting back going, yeah, I think Tennessee's a better team than Indiana, but at the same time, if Indiana's 11-1, they better be in. Like, I don't care. It's just, that's the point I'm at. Like, at some point, the wins and the losses have to matter, and they're like, They don't have to be everything, but they have to matter at some point, is kind of my ground. I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I'm just interested to see how the committee final ranks, because somebody's going to be pissed, and that's chaos, right? So,
And you want to know the sad thing about it all is it's not going to matter, because Alabama's going to sneak into the playoffs as the 8th seed and win it all anyways. But again, it's going to be a really interesting week of college football. A lot of almost deciding factors in this week, even though we'll still have 2 more weeks after that in terms of regular season and conference championship play. So a lot could happen this week in terms of seeding. So make sure you guys tune into the episode next week. Matt, not to put you on the spot, but what are you doing next Wednesday?
I'm going to be here talking about Texas and Texas A&M. I think that was the spot you were pointing me.
Yes.
But because, oh my God, what a doozy.
Yes, that's the exact spot that I was pointing you to. So tune in next week. Matt will be on in some aspect, whether it's on as a full co-host or at least for.
Yeah.
Bank orders. And Spotify. Wonderful viewers go. All right. Thank you guys, and we will see you guys next week.